welcome to
Thursdays with
Ay,
Tony.
ulit. Kala ko ako sa Thursdays. Anyway, ulit.
Paano
Okay.
ba? Ikaw ba?
Oo, tama, ikaw. Na
Okay.
ano ako, parang, ako ba next? O ganun. Anyway, ulit. Sige. Okay. Hello everyone, welcome to
Thursdays with Tony.
and Trish. So today we will be talking about career, but this time our most memorable moments.
Indeed, I'm excited.
All right. So, first of all, I would like to ask you, Tony, with one of your most memorable moment in your one-on-one with a new boss.
Actually, the only one I have in mind at the moment is with my recent boss. So I recall I was like 2 months in the role, and it's the first leadership role of my current boss. And we had it, I think, in Starbucks. So it's more of a get to know you session because she's still starting to know more about us as her direct reports. And the specific things that we talked about that stuck in my mind were she mentioned how it's nice that before joining a shared services environment, I was able to work in a traditional corporate setup because when she was a fresh grad, she immediately joined our current organization. So also I shared with her that the role is a night shift one and it's my first night shift experience. So I don't really see myself lasting in that role. Although it's funny because I'm now turning 4 years in night shift, but I have already expressed to her that I intend to transfer to a day shift role if given the opportunity. But yeah, those were the specific items I recall. How about you? Any memorable one-on-one?
Yeah, actually, my first ever one-on-one with my new boss is the most memorable so far for me. Her name was Anna. She was my first boss. So Miss Anna was very kind to me. She really oriented me to all the processes and introduced me to my teammates formally and professionally. And I really thank God that she was my first boss. She's like a girl version of my dad. She really trained me to be an excellent junior recruiter, and the things that I still practice now are mostly influenced by her. So she really tells me not just to do my job for the sake of doing it. She really taught me integrity, professionalism, and most of all, fearlessness. Because, climbing the corporate world is not easy. The corporate ladder can be competitive, and I was naive and innocent back then, but with her influence she really equipped me to be a better recruiter in person. So Miss Anna, in case you're watching, thank you for not just being a great boss, but also thank you for being a great mentor.
That's nice to know. And speaking of having good mentors, I know that there are instances where our leaders actually give us the chance to step up or showcase our skills, whether it's a project for the team or it's an opportunity for us to be visible. So, do you recall any big moment where you said yes to that opportunity and it eventually helped you with your career development?
Well, it wasn't actually in my job as a recruiter. Probably there was a time that my friend needed a voiceover, and she wasn't looking for someone professional because she can't afford to pay a professional voiceover project. So she asked to use me to be, her voice in the presentation. So I really hate hearing my voice. Ironic kasi I have a podcast now. But I guess when God tells you to do something, and if God calls you to do it, you just gotta do it. And glad I did. It was one of my biggest moments that I will never forget, because I will really never know my potential when it comes to speaking, public speaking, or voiceovers. I mean, here we are now, Tony, doing this show. I mean, I'm speaking. So it was really one of the icebreaker moments for me. So that was one of the biggest moments that I will never forget so far. What about you?
For me, I think last year, when the pandemic started and we started working from home, I transitioned then to becoming like a point of contact for our US graduates and interns hires. So basically, as a point of contact, all important information relevant to their hiring will fall to me. So coordinations with recruiters, line managers, and other stakeholders that are involved in the smooth onboarding of those types of hires. And I think I was really glad to be given that opportunity because whenever my boss and I would discuss then how I'm performing in that particular responsibility, we're both optimistic because we saw how I actually did step up from being a regular advisor to, handling responsibilities, coordinations. And gladly, it paid off because we both received, specific good feedback with how I handled things. So I'm really glad I was able to have that opportunity. But
Well, that's great.
yeah, but funny is, despite us having our wins in the organization, there are times that we don't do that well, or for lack of a better term, we screw up sometimes. Do you recall any specific event or events where you screwed up and it actually had an impact to your performance or your teams?
You know what? Whenever I remember screw ups, sometimes it makes it hard for me to recall because sometimes I really wanted to forget because sometimes when I feel embarrassed, I just probably bury it in my unconsciousness. So when I first heard of this, that we will be talking about screw up, I really thought about it, and took me probably 30 minutes to recall. So for me, it's none other than admin work. I'm not good with details. I always look at the bigger picture at all times, and I also hate Excel sheets. I know we are recruiters, so we deal with recruitment database, we deal with datas, but there was a time that my boss already gave me a warning as this might affect my performance review. So it took me time and several minor mistakes along the way, but I learned to be extra careful and audit my work before I leave. What about you, Tony? What's your probably first or biggest screw up?
Well, the biggest, I may have shared this with the previous episodes, but when I joined this current organization I'm in, and our role deals mainly with personal information of employees because we also are responsible for creating their employee records. And since we enter into the system important personal and job information, it needs to be it needs to undergo data quality check the following day by a peer. And since I was a new joiner then, I was 2 months in the role, and it was my first time doing things on my own without any guidance. That there was a particular month that I had the highest number of data quality errors.
Oh,
And if we're talking about numbers, that's like 65% of the team's error for that month. And it was shocking because of course it's my first time in an organization that does things like everything electronically. And of course, I was somewhat lost, like, what the gap is, what went wrong, what did I not know. So it was kind of tough, but not that tough because I was able to have the support of my team lead then, who was an expat, who was very kind enough to tell me and understand that, hey, it happens to anyone who's new in the organization, and everyone has his or her learning curve. So it did not make me feel that worse because of those words. So I'm glad.
yeah, it's good that despite our screw ups, there are still kind people who will still,
Exactly.
guide us and correct us. So, what about this time in performance review? What's your
Mhm.
biggest memory when it comes to that?
I think I from the time that I had those so many errors, I think it was like 6 months after that conversation. So of course there's like a mid-year review where your leader would tell how you fared for the evaluation period. So of course we had to go back to that time because that is inside a particular evaluation year. And of course when they give me my end of year review, it still has an impact. So it was memorable because you need to somehow recall that, okay, once upon a time you had this huge number of mistakes, but on the other hand I was also informed that my new leader then is also happy of how I transitioned from those many mistakes up to and then eventually I transitioned to lesser mistakes up until I seldom make mistakes in the system. So it's memorable. And I think aside from that, I also heard some feedback from peers, which were shared to like my line manager. So I think they had some personal feedback for me, but probably were not comfortable to say it to me personally. It was a memorable performance review because we also incorporate feedback session, whether it's from stakeholders or your peers. And there were there were words that At the time, I'm not sure if those were the exact words of my peer who gave me the feedback, or if those were like words sugar coated by my by my leader. Because I did not find them professional. Let's put it that
Mm.
way. But eventually, we were able to clear that up. That she did apologize because she realized as well when I told her that I didn't think that's a professional way to say it. So yeah, that's memorable. How about you? How
Well,
your
for
performance
me,
review? Yeah.
yeah. My first ever performance review. Usually, my most unforgettable or biggest moment in my career was my first ever job because that really set standards for me in a good way. So my first ever performance was of course with my first boss, Miss Anna. She was very honest and professional. She really tells you where you are good at and the things that you must improve without offending anyone. Doon ako bilib sa kanya in terms of balancing of not sugarcoating words without being offensive at the same time. I really admire those people probably because they're very good with words and I really admire her for that. So yeah, it makes me want to be like her na lang pag naging boss ako. But we're getting there, we're improving every day. We're trying to be better person along the way. So yeah, so far that's my most unforgettable performance review. So alam naman natin, Tony, we know that we are still, a work in progress and we have a lot of questions in our career, in our personal journeys. So what is your most unforgettable moment in terms of asking for career development opinion from a leader?
I think this was few years back, and in my current role, whenever we have one-on-ones, I would ask my boss, where do you think I would excel aside from recruitment? Because even if I personally don't, not that I don't like, but recruitment is not the my most favorite HR facet. But I think I am doing okay with it. So I mean that's good. But my leader would tell me that since she sees that one of my strengths is stakeholder management, she is actually able to tell me that if only it was her choice, she thinks I would fit well in a system support role in our organization because she noticed how good I am with explaining processes to stakeholders because we have a case management system at work where a leader can actually spot check on your cases and can see how you respond to emails, especially if a line manager or any other stakeholder is asking something that involves our team's process. And of course, if we would want to communicate better, we also need to try our best to explain our process so that they will appreciate where we are coming from. So I think that's the role that she would often tell me whenever we have that conversation that hey, where do you think I would excel in if I'm gonna look for another role outside of our team? How about you?
Well, well, for me, it was actually during my job here with Change Healthcare. So I was really trying to figure out again what recruitment process is because it took me 2 years for me to go back to the recruitment world. So I really asked for fellow HR managers from different companies because when it comes to career development, I asked to several people, not just within my company. So she really tells me that when it comes to dealing with people, it will never be easy, but you just have to learn, and sometimes you have to follow the process first in order for you to know where to break the rules. I think it's applicable also in real life that if you want to break the rules, you have to master the rules first because people can be unpredictable. You cannot be by the book at all times. But if you know the process and you know where to be lenient, you will be able to eventually manage people that you hire. Yeah.
I see. So we've tackled talking about our careers with our leaders, but like aside from that, were there any memorable words that a leader has ever shared, probably in a one-on-one or in a team meeting or even a town hall, that really stuck to your mind up to this
Mhm.
day?
Yeah. Probably most unforgettable was the simplest advice to me by one of my leaders in the past. It was actually quite easy, but it really never sunk into me. I sunk into me when I was still working at that time because I was still young. But she said that if you are willing to learn, you will do good, especially in your career and in life in general. So when it comes to performance review feedbacks, I really take it seriously. And whenever I have an endeavor, I really ask for 3 to 5 persons for feedback. Even they will be straight up honest, even if they will just say it right away in your front of your face. I really take that seriously. That's why for me it took me time to master constructive criticism, but right now I really appreciate that because people will not tell you things if they're not concerned to you. So for me, that is one of the things that I will never forget, that if you're willing to learn, if you're willing to listen, you will really do good in life.
I see. All right. Probably for me, I have two things in mind. The first one was there was a meeting involving our team here in Manila and our stakeholders from the US and Canada. So one manager and the manager of the recruiters in the US became very vulnerable in one of the meetings and somewhat shared a high level of what happened. So she shared that there was an instance where she realized she was not very, what was her term, sensitive when it comes to diversity and inclusion. And she actually broke down, and we were surprised. Although it's just an audio call, but we were surprised because she showed us how vulnerable she can be. And and we are talking about a woman who is very empowered here. She's a very alpha female and someone that you would really look up to. And after she shared, because we heard her somewhat crying already, it was dead air. It was like an angel passed by and everyone was so quiet. And to remove that awkwardness, so I spoke up and said that I appreciate that so far in my stay in the company, I saw how leaders are very comfortable in sharing how vulnerable they can be, and I think that's one great leadership skill that one can possess. Knowing that it's okay to be vulnerable at times too, because that only makes you even more humane. Having a heart and not just leading with your mind. And I think after that meeting, she sent me a personal message expressing how much she appreciated my kind words. And I value that because, I think I did meet her in person once when she visited Manila, but to hear such words from someone who's from a different culture, that's one. And then the other one is from a town hall meeting, or one of our leaders here in Manila said, and I quote, "If it's important to you, make it known." And I think that's just wonderful because it will make you realize that sometimes you may get tired of people talking about something over and over again. But probably it's just because it's just their way of, really emphasizing to other people that this is what's important to me. Yeah. As fun as that may sound, a bit turning a bit not negatively, but we also quit jobs sometimes. And I wonder if you have any unforgettable moment when you quit a job, whether was it chaotic, was it a smooth process, how did it go?
Well, in terms of when it comes to quitting a job, it really is not easy. I think saying goodbye is the hardest part, especially when you became close with your colleagues. I think for me that's the hardest and most unforgettable moment because, of course, somehow you spend time talking not just about work but also personal life. So for me, it's saying goodbye. But when it comes to the process, technically speaking, I really resign properly and hand over my paperwork and tasks properly. So I don't want to have any issues with my clearance. So guys, when you resign, please resign properly. You don't want to pay the price for ditching your employer inappropriately. So yeah, what about you, Tony? What's your most unforgettable moment in terms of quitting a job?
The previous organization I was a part of before my current one, so the engineering consultancy firm, I've had a very, very wonderful working relationship with my HR manager. And although I did quit twice because I was actually rehired there, both goodbyes were bittersweet because I've made so many friends in that organization. And writing my resignation email, it was very hard because I did not sugarcoat anything, and I've been very open with my manager that yeah, it's it's time for growth. I think I'm better off. I will develop more in a different organization. It's memorable because different types of people there, whether they were people my age, engineers, whether they're as old as my parents. It was sad saying goodbye. It was memorable because when people learned I was leaving again, they were all questioning why. And you can't give a better answer than, yeah, it's just time to move on.
I
So
think
yeah,
that's the hardest part,
it is.
saying goodbye.
Yeah,
Sometimes it can be emotional, it can be chaotic, it can be bittersweet.
definitely. Yeah, but quitting a job would often entail as well making decisions that we think are best for us. So
Yes.
with that, what would be your most memorable career decision that you have ever made?
Mhm. This wasn't my most favorite career decision, but this made me really a better person professionally. That's why I consider this as my most unforgettable career decision I have ever made. Not my favorite, but shifting to a job outside my comfort zone is one of the best decisions I have made. It may seem unideal professionally speaking kasi I'm a recruiter and being in sales, it's a totally different path, but it taught me to converse and be a team player to different people coming from different cultures. So it was really an eye opener for me, and it taught me that my introverted personality is not a hindrance for me not to appreciate human connection. What about you?
I think at this point, the only thing that comes to mind is the fact that I did try my luck again, applying to Shell. Initially, I already applied the first time I applied was in 2016. It was not successful. But then, I don't know what came to mind, when I heard about an opportunity in recruitment. It made me become interested. And although the application process took a little while, probably they were screening many applicants. I'm glad I made that choice because on this day, I'm glad with the friends I've made inside the organization, friends that I I did not imagine I will have, and the bond is just very strong. I love how the leaders take care of us. It's very motivating knowing that you're under the leadership of great people. So yeah, I'd say giving something a second shot is something very memorable for me.
Oh, that's great. Well, you know what? It's quite a challenge, but also a good thing to reminisce these types of moments. But I think that is all for tonight.
Yeah.
We're gonna wrap up. So, first of all, we would like to thank you for listening and for tuning in here with our show. This has been
Thursdays.
Thursdays.
Sorry. ulit. Sorry, ikaw pala. Okay, sa Tony lang sasabihin ka. Para lang clear.
Hindi, sige, ikaw na sa sir. This has been na lang ako.
Okay. Ang fail. Okay. Go.
This has been
Thursdays with Tony.
and Trish. Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you. Take care.
Thursdays with Tony
And Trish.